your turn. If it matters to you, it's important to us.
U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is in India today, speaking out and calling on Pakistan to fully cooperate in the investigation into the deadly terrorist attacks in Mumbai last week. It was a brutal, well-coordinated attack in which 171 people were killed over a span of 3 days. U.S. and Indian officials are blaming the attack on militant groups in Pakistan, but they have not blamed al-Qaeda specifically in any way for the assault at this point. It does raise concerns around the globe, though, about the threat of terrorism. Some worry now that the U.S. could become a target in the next few years. We welcome your opinions and thoughts about this today. Call or email us at yourturn@WTVT.com. We'll read some of your comments on the air today. Joining us is Steve Pearl, Chief Operating Officer with Grand ISS, an investigation security service, and he's a former Special Operations with Scotland Yard. Ahmed Bedier is here, President of the Tampa Hillsborough Human Rights Council and host of the radio show True Talk on WMNF Community Radio. Welcome, gentlemen. So what do we think about India and U.S. authorities saying this comes from Pakistan? These are militants from Pakistan, not Britain or not any place else, but... And they're not even saying al-Qaeda specifically.
They're not. Early indications were that there may be some British involvement, i.e. British Muslims. That has never actually been formalised. They've never confirmed that. From the offset, it now looks like these were a small Pakistani group and that they trained in Pakistan and infiltrated India.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, regardless of who they are, I mean, that's what it appears so far. But again, there's so much will come out through the investigations. But regardless of who committed this crime, it's a heinous crime, terrorist attack that everybody should condemn. And Muslims around the world have condemned these attacks as they continue to do so. One of the things that concerned me is watching all the coverage that was happening since the attacks is they have all these people speaking, but they don't bring the Muslim voice, where Muslims have been condemning it since hours after it took place, condemning the attacks. And then the question is, well, where is the Muslims? Where is the silent? Why aren't they speaking out against this? But they have, even to the point that the Indian Muslim authorities this week are refusing to bury these the people, the militants that were killed, saying that because they acted outside Islam, they don't deserve to be buried in Muslim graveyards. A very rare move, but it shows their commitment that they're against terrorism in the name of Islam, and they don't consider these people Muslim. So
you bring up a really interesting point, Ahmed, because frequently in the United States, in our media, you always hear, where are the moderate Muslims? Why are they not condemning this? So you say they are speaking out, besides the burial issue, which I think is pretty interesting, which I've not heard reported anywhere. How else is the Muslim world speaking out against this? How is that happening? How is it
through
taking
condemnations, through condolences, clerics all over the world describing and saying that, look, the Quran is very clear about killing innocent people, where it says in chapter 5, it says, whoever kills a single life, it's as if they've killed all of humanity, and whoever saves a life, it's as if they've saved all of humanity. And people are just getting sick and tired of these militants carrying out acts of terrorism, indiscriminate acts. I mean, when they were going on this killing spree, they were indiscriminate. They were killing everybody that's in their side. They included Muslims, Hindus, Christians, foreigners, natives. So, whatever ideology that they have, it's an ideology of hatred, and it's a dangerous ideology that should be combated by everybody. And Muslims are recognizing that, and they've recognized that. And fortunately, for some reason, in the Western media, or specifically in America, you don't necessarily get that message.
So you're hearing from India, from your people in India, that the Muslims fear that there could be a backlash against them because these are suspected Muslim terrorists.
Absolutely, Kathy. We have investigators on the ground. We've had them there since June on a case that we're working on internationally, and the word from the street in India is basically that the Muslim community, which is the minority community in India, the majority of them are Hindu and Sikh, they now fear a backlash within the Muslim community from the population because of these attacks.
Now, Condoleezza Rice was asked specifically by a reporter in her news conference today whether the U.S. believes al-Qaeda was involved. Immediately when you hear militants or Muslim extremists, people people, immediately the mind goes to, okay, al-Qaeda is acting up again and the threat is growing. Her quote was, "Let me be very clear, we are not saying al-Qaeda is the perpetrator here. There are elements of this, the sophistication of it, that remind us that these extremists, that they are perhaps learning from each other. They move in the same circles, but clearly the sophistication of the attack was what she was addressing." So nobody is saying, or maybe both of you can weigh in on this, you know, does it give you pause to say that it's like one big connected web?
Well, I mean, al-Qaeda is not the only bad guys in the world, and obviously they get the most attention. But it doesn't even necessarily mean that the only Muslims are terrorists, or whoever is carrying out any type of attacks is going to have some sort of Muslim ideology. I mean, the individuals that I saw there, they seemed to be young. They didn't necessarily strike me as looking, they just look like they belong in that part of the world. They didn't look out of place. They looked like, you know, even the dress that they were wearing was, you know, Western style dress. But regardless of who's committing the crimes, both sides, whether it's al-Qaeda or anybody else, both India, Pakistan, the United States need to send a message of calm and coolness and be able to address this not as an act of war. This was not an act of war. This was, and I've seen it described in the media in the beginning as, oh, this is India's 9/11. Well, this pales in comparison to what happened in 9/11. But furthermore, the way that you should respond to these attacks is the way that you resolve criminal acts. As if, you know, the same way the Virginia Tech shooting happened. The police came in. It wasn't the military that responded.
But who will be the judge and jury here if Pakistan doesn't turn over the ones responsible?
Well, even as of last night, President of Pakistan, or the Prime Minister and the President and everybody there saying, you know, turn over the evidence that these are Pakistanis, and we'll fully cooperate. We'll even try them in Pakistan, or we'll cooperate with you there in India. So I think there is a sense of cooperation, and so far so good as far as the cooperation.
What do you think about the al-Qaeda connection?
I think that Condoleezza Rice did say that this is the type of operation that al-Qaeda would like to be involved in. I think so far it's been accredited to a group, and if my pronunciation is right, is Lashkar-e-Toiba, and they're basically a militant group in Pakistan that have issues with the Kashmir region, you know, between India and Pakistan. I think it's pretty much been accredited to them, and from what I understand is that there's probably up to 20 people that were involved in the planning of this operation that are still at large in Pakistan, and these are the people that India want to be brought to book in India. They don't want the Pakistanis to try them. They want them to be brought to India for trial. That
sounds like it's going to be an interesting situation there. We'll take a break, continue this conversation when we come back about what's going on over in India as far as the attacks there in Mumbai.
Whether there is a direct al-Qaeda hand or not, this is clearly the kind of terrorism in which al-Qaeda participates. It's a sense that you want to not just terrorize in a general sense, but you try and send a strong message that people are not safe, that businesses are not safe, that economic centers are not safe. We experienced that in New York.
Condoleezza Rice over in India trying to calm the tensions now between India and Pakistan. Joining us today, Steve Pearl, COO of ISS, and Ahmed Bedier with the Tampa Hillsborough Human Rights Council. Regardless of whether people are connecting this to al-Qaeda and there's a big web, or these are just isolated cells of militants, what is going on in northern Pakistan? That's really the breeding ground, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We've seen that. We've seen it from the UK with our so-called homegrown terrorists. There's a certain amount of training camps, terrorist training camps set up in northern Pakistan where terrorists worldwide come to train. You know, we knew that in Libya, when Libya was condoning terrorism, that the IRA used to go to Libya to train. So it's an international thing, and the majority of these bases are now located in northern Pakistan.
And let me just say, Ahmed, hold just a minute. They did capture one gunman in Mumbai, and he has told interrogators that only 10 of the 24 young men in the year-long terrorist training course he took were sent to Mumbai. 14 are still in Pakistan, ready to go. Okay, you were going to say.
Well, in following up about the training camps in Pakistan, all the Pakistanis I talk to, and the ones here and the people that travel back and forth, condemn and reject any type of extremism and violence, and they don't want any type of training camps to be in their midst. But it goes back to who created those training camps, and it goes back to the United States involvement in that area when it was convenient to support these militant groups when they were at war against the Soviets and supporting activity in Afghanistan. And then when that finished, then they withdrew and left the training camps there. But the whole issue about Kashmir, which they brought up, also goes back to Britain's involvement there when they colonized India, and when they left in 1947, they partitioned it. When the majority of they divided it to be the majority Muslim population should be in Pakistan and the majority Hindu should be in India, Kashmir was left unsettled, and it's been violence ever since. And so our involvement in that area and the West's involvement in the area for such a long time in the past is now coming back to haunt us again.
But now, Ahmed, even though those training camps were useful to the Pakistanis for a while to help fight against the Soviets,
and
if they're still there now, what is to compel the Pakistanis to say they are no longer serving their purpose, we need to root them out, we need to do something about these training camps? What will force the Pakistanis to do that?
Another concern that Pakistanis that I talk to have is that they feel like the West is looking for a pretext to invade Pakistan or northern Pakistan, which will be a catastrophe. They need to work in a policing way with the people in Pakistan and to be able to moderate those people or to be able to get them to be disarmed. But it's going to be very difficult. I mean, these are tribal regions that do things their own way for a very long time.